Hello everyone, I'm Slow Rider, this is my world. And yes, I'm out on the CBR 500R for the final time. And that means that it must be new bike day. But what have I got? So, those of you who have been watching over the last couple of weeks will know that my Triumph Sprint ST kind of expired while I was out on a ride. I was going on a tour for the week with my brother, as I do every year. And for reasons which are probably mostly my fault, but we'll skip over most of them. In fact, no, let's skip over all of them. That's even better. Something at the bottom end of the engine has gone, and I was left with a choice of finding a new engine, getting someone to fix it, or getting a new bike. So, having made an agreement with Mrs. Slow Rider that if any big bills came along, that I would look for another bike, I started looking for another bike, and I came up with a short list of 3 bikes that I thought would be suitable for me. The Suzuki GSX S1000GT, or more specifically the GT Plus, the Honda NT1100, and the Kawasaki Ninja 1100 SX. Obviously, they all have their pros and cons, so I'm not saying any of them are good or bad bikes necessarily when I say that everyone's going to have their own personal choice as to which one they want to get. Now, I will say, for a number of, well, it's not even months, it's probably years now, I've been toying with the idea of getting rid of my CBR, which is why this is the final ride. And it's kind of it's a great bike. I don't want to get rid of it situation, but at the same time, it makes sense to get rid of it. I don't commute to work anymore, so I don't really need 3 bikes. And this is just money that's sitting around essentially wasted. I don't ride it as much as I used to. I've got less time to ride the bikes at the moment. So, yeah, in getting a new bike, it made sense to trade this one in or sell it on the open market. And I didn't think I'd get much for it on the open market, if I'm honest. I thought maybe 3 to 3.5 grand, because it's a very early 19 style bike. It's actually a 68 plate, but it's the 19 style, and I make that distinction because the 18 style bike was slightly different. But anyway, that's beside the point. So it's a good few years old now, and it's done 16,000 miles. So I figure 3 to 3.5 grand is probably the best I would get for it. And in sort of letting people know, when I was going out for the test ride, that I would be looking to trade it in. I was given a value of £2,000, and I thought, do you know what? That's much more than I thought it'd be for trading. I figured they would lowball me and go, it'd be about £1 grand or £1.50 grand, maybe tops. So I was quite pleased to get sort of £2 grand for it. But yeah, at the same time, it is lower than I could have got if I'd sold it on the open market. I just think it saves time, not having to deal with the general public. Obviously, there are pros and cons to each of the bikes, and I'm not going to say that necessarily one's better than the other, because I think they're all very good bikes. The S1000GT, the NT1100, and the Ninja 1100 SX, they're all good bikes. They're all very capable bikes. So there's a lot of, down to personal choice as to which one anyone would go for. But but I'm going to try and sort of summarize some of the differences for me anyway. Obviously, I'm not a technical geek. There's different horsepowers and engine sizes and whatnot, and weight and so on and so forth, which you can find on the various websites if you want to go down that route. I'm not very technical minded, so a lot of that just goes way above my head. An obvious important factor was, can I get the bike into my backyard? And yes, I can get all of them into my backyard, so that's fine. From a price point of view, and this was a consideration, they're all basically about the same price. Officially, I think the Suzuki is the most expensive, £12,800, but Suzuki are currently doing a promo offer where you get £1,000 from them towards the bike. So they're actually the cheapest now at 11,800 and something or other, some pennies. The Kawasaki's in the middle, 12,200 and some pennies. And the NT is now the most expensive at 12,800 and something or other. So there's really not a lot of difference price-wise. So it's a question of what you get for your money. The Honda is the only one, I think, where you get the panniers as standard. Or the other two you have to pay extra for. Either by way of a touring pack, as you would get on the Kawasaki, or officially a different model on the Suzuki, which is the GT Plus. And both those options are, I think, about £1,000 more. So that makes the NT suddenly the cheapest of the lot, which is kind of weird when you think about it. But it's not all just about price, it's about options as well. With the Kawasaki, when you get the panniers, you also get heated grips and a number of other items that come with it. So really, the pannier bags aren't the £1,000 that is initially thought of when you look at one thing you want, and that's what it costs to have it fitted. The NT is the only one that has a top box option, which I find quite odd for sports tourers, if I'm honest, and particularly as Suzuki have the S1000GX, which is the adventure bike version, but that does have a top box. And I think the Versys for Kawasaki, I think that has a top box as well. But yeah, on the sports tourers, apparently no, because, well, the Kawasaki guy said to me the reason they didn't have a top box was for weight issues, which I'm not entirely sure I believe. But, I mean, because every bike has weight limits that you can put on the back of the bike, and whether you've got a top box on or not, it shouldn't adjust how much weight is put on the bike. I guess there's an aerodynamics thing, maybe, but that's not strictly a weight thing. So the line I was given was that people are putting too much weight on the back of the bikes, and so they're braking, and Kawasaki doesn't want that, and I guess Suzuki feels the same, particularly on sports bikes at high speed. And when we're talking high speed, we're talking probably not legal in most countries speed. Anyway, I think in terms of colours, Suzuki have the best range, and I'm going to be honest, I think they have the best colour as well. I was a little bit sceptical at first, but they have a colour called Candy Red, which I was thinking would be bright red. I mean, we're talking midlife crisis buying a Ferrari red. But no, it's not. It's very similar to my Triumph. It's a very deep red. It's actually a very nice red. But they also have two different shades of blue and various shades of grey, if you're interested in them. The NT is the next in the colour options, or at least in the number of colour options. They've got black and a dark blue, which is actually quite nice. And they've got what they call warm ash metallic, which the Honda dealership described it to me as kind of a light gold. I'm not sold on that colour at all. I would say that particular colour is probably the worst colour of all three bikes. It's not a good colour. And then Kawasaki, if you get the SX version of the bike, that just has one colour option, which is a sort of a metallic grey with some green flecks in it. If you were to splash out for the SE version of the bike, then yes, you get two other colours, one of which is sort of a metallic black with red flecks in it, or metallic grey and green, in that sort of way that Kawasaki throw green onto bikes these days, just in random patches. Yeah, so not many options there. The NT also has CarPlay, like the Africa Twin does, and Suzuki has the MySpin system, which I think is developed by Bosch, which is kind of CarPlay light, I guess. There are certain apps you can use and certain ones you can't, and yeah, it's a little bit weird from what I can gather. The Kawasaki also loses in this department because whilst it does have connectivity to your phone through an app, it doesn't have the features that CarPlay has, or even the was it MySpin, I think it's called, or something like that. Anyway, the point is it doesn't have that the Suzuki has either. There are Kawasaki's that do have that ride system, but it's just not on the Ninja 1100 SX. I'm pretty sure they all have their own particular version of USB sockets and etc. Although you need to check the specs of the individual models to actually know which one's which. Yeah. I mean, if I was to pick a bike based on specs, it's probably going to be the NT. If I was to pick one on riding position, that's a very different kettle of fish. And again, it's a very personal choice as to which one you go for. The NT is a very sort of touring, upright sort of seating position, and the Kawasaki is a much more sports position. And the feel I got from the GT Plus was somewhere in the middle. So yeah, I guess, you know, if you wanted the sports tourer feel, you probably lean towards the Kawasaki or Suzuki, and if you wanted the tourer sort of side of things, you would pick the Honda. But I think otherwise, that, you know, sort of, if you were just looking on a website and not going out and riding them, they're much of a muchness, I think. But you would probably pick the NT. What can you say? Okay, it's a little untidy now, but making sure my camera's still on. That'd have been funny, wouldn't it? I'm doing all this and it's not on. Go away, fly. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Yes, keep away from the front of that. Yeah, look at that. Look, it's just a beautiful bike. It is a beautiful bike. Anyway, I've got to move on from that. And we're down at Ladybow. And it's time to reveal the new bike. Yeah, that's right. It's the Ninja 1100 SX. It's the bike that I felt
most comfortable on the test ride. By a mile, I would say, honestly. Within about 10 minutes of being on the bike, I knew this was the one. Yeah, someone's going to come along and tell me, no, you should do it. I had a 2-hour test ride on this. I didn't have a smile as big as the Triumph gave me, but the smile was there. The feeling was there. This is the bike. This is the one.
I'll be honest, it was a little bit of a tough call at first. I rode the GSX S1000GT first, and I was somewhat underwhelmed by it, I'm going to be honest. It was perfectly fine, perfectly good bike, but I just got no feel from it until you hit 5,000 RPM, and then suddenly it came alive, but I don't ride like that. I went home a little disappointed, I'll be honest. But I decided to go and test ride the NT1100. And I'll be honest, this wasn't my first choice of Kawasaki either. But I rode the NT1100, the DCT, and again, perfectly good bike. But I think I was hamstrung by the fact it was the DCT model, and I didn't like it. I did not like the DCT. It felt like I had a lack of control, which is odd. I'm mostly sort of on and off throttle. Like here, I have a clutch. I can pull the clutch in and coast or sort of control the throttle, and I felt that was missing. And obviously on a manual version of the 1100 GT, that wouldn't be a problem, because I would have the clutch, but I couldn't test ride that. If I had one in the shop, I could sit there and feel how light the clutch was and everything. It's just, that's not the same as riding it. And I really want to ring this thing out, but I can't because it's brand new. But again, it's a perfectly capable bike, and if you've got one and you like it, that's awesome. I think what probably didn't help, and this goes back to something I've heard before, I think from Mr. Fish, from his review of the NT1100. I was asked what, sort of after the test ride, what other bikes I've got, and I said, I've got the NT750, and do you like riding that? I said, yeah, I can find that. Sort of, it's very workmanlike, but I can get out there and enjoy the bike. And they said, well, if you enjoy riding that, you'll like the NT. And yeah, And the thing is, both those bikes have the advantage of having proper CarPlay systems. Okay, the Suzuki one is a little bit limited, but they've both got it. This doesn't really. The bike I was originally looking at was actually a H2SX, because my local Kawasaki dealership had some pre-registered ones, which were about the same price as the NT1100, slightly more, but in the same sort of ballpark, and I thought, that's damn good value. But I couldn't get a test ride on one. I didn't want to sort of buy one and then discover I didn't like it for that kind of money. But when I inquired about one, a place that I thought had one, or thought might have one, Cobb and Jagger in Shipley, they said, oh, we don't have one of them, but what we do have is the 1100 SX. Do you want to ride that for 2 hours? Oh, well, okay, sure. A little half-heartedly, I'll be honest. And as I say, it was 10-15 minutes, and I thought, I like this. I like this a lot. And that feeling didn't go away, even as the fuel light started to flash. That feeling did not go away, and that's the point I knew that was the bike for me. That was the right bike. It brought a smile to my face, and I went home, and Mrs. Slow Rider said, well, how did it go? And I couldn't really hide the smile. And she said, you found one, haven't you? And I went, yeah, I found one. But I gave it a couple of days, as I should, and thought about it, and I thought, no, it still feels like the right bike. And when you do that, you know it's right. When you get that feeling. And I know all of the bikes are basically lighter than this Triumph, which means I could throw them all into the corners, but yeah. And I know I've part paid for it with the CBR, which I didn't really want to leave, but I think I'm going to love this bike. I can feel the smile already. As I say, I'm not knocking the other two bikes at all. They're both very capable bikes. They're just not for me. They just didn't feel right. And you've got to feel right. You've got to have a good feeling about the bike, I think. And boy, do I have a good feeling about this bike. So, Kawasaki, at the time of buying this and at the time of recording, had a deal on, which helped sweeten it a little bit, I'll grant you. Which was, they would give away the touring pack for free. Well, not so much give away, but they'll give you the touring pack for free with the basic modular bike. Possibly with the performance one, I don't know. So I've paid the basic price for this, which is a smidgen over £12,000. And I've got a heated grips, got the quick shifter obviously. I've got the panniers and the pannier liners as well. I've got this little USB thing. I don't know if actually that comes on the basic bike. And the funky little phone holder. I don't yet know that that's ever going to get used, but it's funky.
So there we have it. I bought the Ninja 1100 SX, and now I've got to get it ready for going on tour with in a month or so's time. So I've really got to go for ride-outs on it. But until I do, we've got a video coming up soon on a trip to Wales I did, if I can get that edited in time. That's probably going to be the next set of videos. So until then, thank you very much for watching. Be good humans. Ta-ta for now.